Hello everyone and welcome to this demo. We got this compass. It is a AI generated image. I used Midjourney for a golden compass. So I am busy working on a series for a client from the novel by Philip Pullman called His Dark Materials. So I thought it would be fitting to just literally do a small piece of the actual golden compass itself. So there's a lot of detail in this image. I simplified it as much as I could so that I still have the same effect without putting in all these details. I'm working on pastel matte paper here. This is the white color. And as always, laying in a background using my soft pastel sticks. I definitely wanted to keep that blue in. You can see there's some blue on the left hand side there because the blue and gold work so beautifully together, but also the theme of the room that this will be going in is gold and royal blue. So kind of just keeping that theme in this piece, as well as the second piece, which I'll release later. It's with Lyra in Oxford. If you know the story, BBC released a mini-series a few years ago, so you can go check that out. I'm sure lots of you know the story, especially if you enjoy fantasy. Okay, so I got my background in there, nice soft out of focus background. And this little top part of the compass is a great place to start. I don't really know how I'm going to tackle this. At first, I thought that I would do the compass in pastel pencils. That's how I thought I would do the whole thing, mainly. But I actually changed my mind as it went along. Just like I said, I was a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of detail. And as I was going along, I thought, no, I'm going to leave out the sphere. So there's a few eclipses as it goes. You've got the outer rim of the compass and then another rim, and it goes all the way down to the middle. I left one of those out just to simplify it a little bit. And you can't really tell, there's no big difference. It didn't let the painting down at all. It made my job that little bit easier. So here you can see I've got my pastel pencils, working out how I'm still constantly thinking in my brain, how am I going to do this? And then I'm like, okay, let me get some color in here. Let me get the darks in. Let me get my big shapes in. And so I wanted to work in pastel pencils. My thinking was, because there's so much detail here, I've got fine little nibs on the pastel pencil, which lends itself well to detail. And also, if I make mistakes, it's going to be easy to correct them because the pastel pencil doesn't filter to the paper like soft pastels would. So my thinking was, that's a good plan. It gives me room to make mistakes and I can get fine little details. But as it progressed, I decided against that and I went in with my pastel sticks, blocking in shapes of color and tonal value. And then I thought at the end of it, I'll try put some of those details in with my pastel pencils. So here you can see I'm blocking in color. And that was, I think, a better approach. It felt somehow that I could remember to just squint my eyes and have a look at the shapes rather than focusing on every minute little detail that I felt I had to get in. It helped simplify it by just squinting my eyes and seeing less detail. So that was the approach that I landed on. And so I'm just grabbing different pastel sticks across all the brands. Now, this is a golden compass, but the golds very much lean more towards orange yellow rather than yellow or lemon yellow golds or pale acidic golds. They very much have a lot more orange, so a lot more red in them. So as I was going along, I'd put a color down. I'd be like, oh, that's too light and that's the wrong sort of yellow. I need something with more orange in. And was building up. I just built up the gold in this way. You can see I keep going around. Throughout the piece, I'm correcting my ellipses throughout. I knew that if I went terribly wonky with an ellipse, it would let the whole painting down. So I was quite careful. You can see I needed to do a lot of correcting as it went on. If I had my pastel stick and I laid in a block of color, sometimes that color would outshape the ellipse, so I'd go back in and fix the ellipse. So it's basically backwards and forwards until I got the painting to a place that I was happy with. Just continually laying up and building my shapes and my tonal values. So here you could see me putting in a few of those details, those little notches in a compass. So I added a little bit of those, again starting to think about bringing in these details. I went with a nice black. It's a new pastel black, is my favorite black pastel on the market. Quite tricky to get here in the UK. And also they used to sell them as individual sticks and they don't anymore. So you have to buy a set of 12, 24, 64, 86, which is really annoying, just to get the black. Anyway, enough about that, but it is my favorite black. It's not a dead black. It's like got a glisten particle in it, like a mica sort of particle. Anyway, and it's really, really dark. Anyway, it's brilliant. So I went over the black though with the dark red brown, just on the bottom there where the engravings, where all that ornate, intricate molding is along the bottom of the compass, is where I'm talking about. I didn't just leave it black. Some areas are black, very small parts are black, but I go over with, like I said, a dark reddish brown. Overall, the compass definitely leans in the orange family, the yellow oranges. So the browns I'm using have high amounts of red, orangey reds in them. I do also use BE36 from Unison, which is stunning. It's like a dark greenish brown, which works really nicely for gold. You know, sometimes gold can get that little tarnished look to it, and it takes on a more of a greenish hue. So I used a little bit of that in this too. If you wanted to see this in real time, I'll leave a link in the description below where you can check it out on Patreon. That is where I upload all my demos, so you can watch in your own time and see how things come together. But this is coming to the end for this time lapse. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.